All right, I'm going to get started. Welcome everyone to the Technical Steering Committee meeting for CitrineOS. CitrineOS is a Linux Foundation Energy project. If you are unfamiliar with their antitrust policy, I suggest you take a moment to look at it here. In case you are unfamiliar with this project, CitrineOS is an open source charging station management system. It's a Linux Foundation Energy project initially contributed by S44. You can find our GitHub IO page, which includes documentation on how to get started with the project and what its purpose is at our GitHub IO page. And you can see some videos that will explain concepts related to charging station management, as well as specific information for CitrineOS at the YouTube channel at S44 Insights. I'm going to go over the most recent releases. 1.8.2 is going to be going out today. Uh, it is a release for CitrineOS Core, which is the portion of the project which supports OCPP communication with charging stations. This patch version has some improvements to how status notification is handled. This includes some handling for cases in 1.6 where the connector ID is 0. Previously, the logic was to always ignore those. Now you have the option to have them apply to all connectors in the case where they are being used for that purpose. We also made some improvements to how WebSocket state is handled. Strictly speaking, the way that that's supposed to work is if a message is being processed and another message is sent, that message should be rejected. But a lot of OCPP 1.6 chargers don't respect that. So we now have some lenience if the charging station sends back-to-back messages without waiting for responses. So that'll make it easier to interact with older or less strict 1.6 implementations. Other than that, there were just a small group of bug fixes and some quality of life things. We removed some files from the repo that were not being used. 1.1 is going to be released also today. This introduces some new features. There's toggles on stations and transactions now to switch their status manually. So if you know a station should be offline and online, but for whatever reason, the status is not correct, you can manually fix that. And same with transactions. If you know that a transaction is supposed to be inactive or active, but it is not currently in the correct state, you can now change that in the UI. These are also independently able to be toggled for role-based access control. So you can have only specific users have access to that functionality. There's also now a button to force stations to disconnect by closing the WebSocket on the server side. And the ability to edit authorizations was restored. It was removed temporarily after we released the integration with OCPI, because OCPI introduces the notion that authorizations handled by Citrine are actually not Citrine's to edit. So in OCPI, Citrine acts as a CPO, which means that user authorization info is technically not owned by Citrine in that exchange. It's owned by upstream MSPs. So even if you did edit it on our side, that doesn't necessarily mean you've actually changed the token status, and it might disagree with the source of truth, which would be the MSP that created the authorization. So the edit capability has been restored with the idea that you can just handle that with role-based access control rather than being so opinionated that the default is so irritating to deal with when doing local testing. In addition, there's a group of bug fixes that come out with this release. Upcoming releases for Core, we're going to have a patch release that handles an issue that has been coming up recently on the Discord channel. People have been pointing out that long-running transactions take up too much memory bandwidth because the current way that we handle keeping totals on the amount of energy that has been charged in a transaction is we load all of the meter values into memory. That's no longer going to be the case in the next release. There's an open PR that won't quite make it into this current release, but we'll definitely make it into 1.8.3 to solve that issue. There's also some minor improvements to the way that multi-tenancy is handled. And very exciting, we have our first open PR for OCPP 2.1. It's not going to be merged until a 1.9.0 release, along with more complete support, but that's just around the corner. Probably in, I would say, 2 weeks to a month, we're going to have our first PRs related to 2.1 support. So, yep, coming up on the roadmap is OCPP 2.1. That's definitely the most exciting thing. But also, we're going to be restructuring the repositories. One problem that we've been running into is that with 3 different repositories, one for core, one for our OCPI layer, and one for the operator UI, it can be difficult for people to get started with these various portions of the project, and it's also very easy for them to no longer be in sync. So, for example, OCPI currently works with the 1.8.0 version of CitrineOS Core, but has issues with more recent versions that need to be fixed. So we're going to be moving those 3 into a single repository, which will allow for better testing pipelines and also make it a lot easier to get started with these various portions of the project. Moving on from the status update to our community. Um, So we currently have S44 as a major contributor, the original author to the project. We also have a module that was submitted by Stackbox. They added a Python-based Stripe integration, CitrineOS payment, which is one of the repositories under the CitrineOS GitHub organization. And we have, this is actually outdated, apologies. We have 550 members on Discord. So we have quite a large Discord community, which is, I think, the best place to go if you have any particular questions and you want to get quick answers, either about how to use the project or how the project is being developed. There's a lot of people who have expressed an intent to contribute on the Discord, and recently that's been actually making it all the way to PRs. We've been merging several different community PRs recently, which is very exciting. So yeah, I recommend you check it out. Um, if you are interested in how the community is organized, you can find that on the main repository, so CitrineOS, which is just for the community. That's where our governance file is. It's also where you can post issues or start discussions on the project. It describes a few different roles. The most simple is contributor. All you need to be a contributor is have one approved and merged PR, and there's no responsibilities associated with that. But there is a larger role committer, which does give input into the future of the project, but it requires specific responsibilities. You must be active in the email listserv as well as the Discord channel and assist with reviewing and approving PRs. At least 25% of your work time weekly must be committed to the project. So in the first part of this presentation, I discussed our roadmap. That roadmap is flexible. We have in the past and will continue to take into account the feedback we get from our community in terms of what features we prioritize the most. So we welcome any discussion on the topic. And with that being said, I'm going to move to the open mic portion of the meeting. If anyone would like to introduce themselves and or ask any questions, now is the time to do so. Okay, I will move on. After this meeting, I mentioned the GitHub IO if you want to start familiarizing yourself with the project. There's also a link to the Discord channel there, an invite, so you can join it. And here's the invite again as a QR code. Thank you all. The recordings will be made available on YouTube later. And that is it for this TSC meeting.